It's Meredith, local real estate agent here in the Raleigh area. If you are a first-time home buyer or a relocating out-of-state buyer, then this video is absolutely for you. I'm going to walk you through the steps of purchasing a home. So, number one, the first thing that you're going to want to do is get a pre-approval letter with a local lender. Now, what this does is it tells you the price point in which you need to be shopping for a home, and having that pre-approval letter and loan estimate from that lender will tell you what you can expect on a monthly basis to be paying in your mortgage, and also what to expect as far as a down payment goes and closing costs and things like that that will be involved. So that is the first step. And then the second step is we will meet to start looking at houses and go over your criteria, such as location, what your lifestyle is like, where you ideally want to be, what neighborhoods you like. So once we go over that, we will start looking at houses and kind of comparing to figure out which one you feel like works best for you. Once you decide on a home that you want to offer on, then we will start putting paperwork and an offer letter together. So I will do that through a electronic system through dotloop, and I send it to you electronically to sign. Now, there are a couple things that are in the contract that I want to go over because North Carolina is a little bit different than a lot of other states. So in North Carolina, we have what's called a due diligence deposit and a due diligence time period within the contract. So the due diligence deposit is a deposit that is made directly to the seller. It is in the form of could be a personal check, could be a bank check, could be a wire transfer, but it pretty much it goes straight to the seller right after you go under contract. Once the seller signed, once you've signed, everybody's signed, that is when your due diligence payment is due. Now, in North Carolina, that due diligence payment is non-refundable no matter what. If you decide 2 days later you want to back out of the contract, the seller gets to keep that money. Basically what it is think of it as like a good faith payment to the seller to take their home off the market and mark it as pending. But it is a credit to you at closing, so when you get to the closing table, you've already paid that amount. So think of it as if you were buying a $500,000 house, that due diligence payment is going to be about 1% to 2% of the purchase price of the home. So you could expect to pay, depending on if we're competing against other buyers, between $5,000 and $10,000 for that due diligence payment. The second thing that we have on the offer to purchase is called earnest money. Now, I don't see this often on contracts. We kind of stopped using it after COVID, but earnest money is basically a second deposit that is held in escrow by the closing attorney, and it is given once you go under contract, but it becomes non-refundable after 5 p.m. on the last day of your due diligence period. So if you back out during your due diligence period, you could still get that earnest money back. I will say that not a lot of buyers are putting earnest money on contracts, and not a lot of sellers are really expecting it. So that one I wouldn't put a lot of weight in. So we have that due diligence period. Basically what that is the time for us to get an inspector in there for you to get your home inspection, and that is when your lender will order the appraisal. So we want that appraisal to come back at purchase price or higher. We will have these conversations as we are looking at comps and going under contract on a home. But if, for example, your appraisal came in, let's say $5,000 or $10,000 under what you agreed to pay to the seller, then at that point in time, the buyer is responsible for covering the gap between appraisal and purchase price, or we go back to the seller to negotiate the price down. There are other ways that we can go about it, put addendums in there to protect you during that appraisal process if we don't feel like your home will appraise. So after that due diligence period, which is about 14 to 21 days, then we have about a week or two left between closing. That's when your lender is going to be reaching out to you, getting last minute items, things that the underwriter is asking for to get loan approval. And then you will get final loan approval. We'll do a final walkthrough the day before closing, make sure everything looks like it is in the same condition as it did when you went under contract. The buyer will then wire money. So you're going to get a closing disclosure balanced by the closing attorney and the lender, and they're going to come up with a number that the buyer needs to wire before closing. And this is going to be things like your down payment, closing cost, any kind of like lender fees, HOA fees, startup fees like that. That will be on the closing disclosure, and it will be in your final cash to close. So you will wire the money the day before you go into the attorney's office to sign papers. I know I kind of went through this very, very quickly, and there are definitely a lot of things about our contract that we can kind of sit down and dive deep about, but wanted to mainly talk about the due diligence fee that we have here in North Carolina because it is different than a lot of states, and a lot of buyers are shocked by it, especially first-time home buyers. It's a lot of money. So think about it, 1% to 2% of the purchase price of the home. And if you're ready to get started, I will put my contact info below. I would love to sit down and meet with you and come up with a game plan.